Hello, hello, konnichiwa, and welcome to my channel. My name is Hannah, and it's been quite a while since I last uploaded a video completely in English, but here we are today. So today I thought I'd teach you a little bit of Japanese. I'm going to be teaching you the alphabet, katakana. I think that learning katakana, if you're first learning Japanese, is a good starting point because it introduces you to the Japanese sound system, and it also gets you started in being able to read in native Japanese, which I think is very important if you want to progress more with the language, because learning just how to read Japanese in Romaji, which is when you transcribe Japanese sounds into the Latin alphabet, so you write it with like English letters. I think that is a drawback to learning Japanese because you don't learn how to read in the whole native language. So, let's start. So, like I said, today I'm going to be teaching you katakana. This is katakana written in katakana. So it's actually not called an alphabet, it's called a syllabary, and I'll tell you why. So, while the syllable ka, when we write it in English, it's written with 2 letters. In Japanese, in katakana, it's written with just one symbol. So just one symbol represents the whole ka syllable. Same with ka, ta, ka again, and na. So katakana is written using only 4 letters because there are 4 syllables. I hope that makes sense. So the Japanese writing system is very complex. It is made up of 3 components. There's kanji, which is the set of thousands of pictograms imported from Chinese. You don't need to worry about that because we're not going to be learning that today. Then there's hiragana, which is another syllabary. And then there's katakana. Katakana is used for writing foreign names, loan words, and for general emphasis. So it's a little bit like writing in italics in English. It's a good starting point for when you're just first learning Japanese because loan words imported from other languages, so like from English, there's a lot of loan words from English and Japanese are written in katakana. So it's a good starting point when you're just being a student of Japanese. It's the first alphabet I learned. I'm not a native speaker of Japanese at all. I'm definitely not perfect in my Japanese, but I think I know enough to teach just the beginning components of it. So, katakana. Okay? Alright, now let's start actually learning it. So, in Japanese, there are only 5 vowel sounds, which makes it pretty easy to learn. We have a, I, U, E, and O. Okay, can you say a, I, U, E, O? A, I, U, E, O. Okay, so when you're learning katakana or any of the Japanese writing system, you really just have to memorize them at first, and then you'll be able to read them pretty proficiently. So we have a, I, U, E, O. These are just the plain vowel sounds, right? So we don't have any consonant sounds, it's just the vowels. A, I, U, E, O. Okay, you got all that? I know it's a lot of information to just have thrown at you, so you really just have to memorize them. So, one last time. A, I, U, E, O. Okay, ready to move on? Alright. So next we have what I'm going to call the K syllables. So these are all the syllables that begin with a K sound. So just like we had a, I, u, e, and o, we have ka, ki, ku, ke, and ko. Right? So these are completely different from the plain syllables, right? The ka doesn't look anything like an a, right? So it's a completely different letter, even though they both end in a. Ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. 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 All right? Ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. Okay, one last time. Ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. Okay, ready to move on? All right. So next we have the S syllables. So these begin with S. And it does get a little bit more complicated because we have sa, but instead of si, there's no si in Japanese, it's shi. So sometimes it's romanized like this, sometimes it's romanized like this. I think this makes a little bit more sense because it's a little bit closer to the actual sound of it. So we have sa, shi, su, se, and so. Okay, can you say sa, shi, su, se, so? Sa, shi, su, se, so. Sa, shi, su, se, and so. Alright? One more time. Sa, shi, su, se, and so. Alright? Are you ready to move on? Alright. So now we have the T syllables. Okay? So it's a little bit more complicated here because we have ta, but instead of ti, we have chi. And instead of tu, we have tsu. Okay? Tsu. Chi and tsu. So we have ta, chi, tsu, te, to. Okay? Can you say ta, chi, tsu, te, to? Ta, chi, tsu, te, to. Ta, chi, tsu, te, to. Alright? Ta, chi, tsu, te, to. Ta, chi, tsu, te, to. Ta, chi, tsu, te, to. Okay, one more time. Ta, chi, tsu, te, to. Alright, ready to move on? Alright. So this next one's a little bit easier because it goes exactly as you would expect. So these are the N syllables. And they are na, ni, nu, ne, and no. Okay, can you say na, ni, nu, ne, and no? Na, ni, nu, ne, no. Na, ni, nu, ne, and no. Na, ni, nu, ne, no. Na, ni, nu, ne, no. Na, ni, nu, ne, no. Alright, one more time. Na, ni, nu, ne, and no. Alright, ready to move on? Alright. Okay, next we have the H syllables, okay? So we have ha, he, but instead of who, we have fu. It's kind of a mix between an H and an F sound, but it sounds closer to fu than it does to who. I can't say it exactly properly because I'm an American, so I have an accent, so I just say fu. But we have ha, he, fu, he, and ho. Okay? Can you say ha, he, fu, he, ho? Ha, he, fu, he, ho. 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 All right, one more time. Ha, he, fu, he, ho. All right, ready to move on? All right. So next, we have the M syllables. Okay? These are pretty easy because there's nothing special to remember. Just ma, mi, mu, me, mo. Okay? Ma, mi, mu, me, mo. 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 Okay? One more time. Ma, mi, mu, me, mo. Alright? I know it's a lot of information to have thrown at you at once, but hopefully you'll remember some of them. Next, we have the R syllables. So R in Japanese is a little difficult. It sounds kind of like a D does in English, in American English. But it's a flap R sound, so I'm going to try to make the sound the best I can, but again, I'm not a native speaker, so it won't be perfect. So we have da, di, du, de, and do. Okay? Da, di, du, de, do. Da, di, du, de, do. Da, di, du, de, do. Okay, so we have da, di, du, de, do. Da, di, du, de, do. Da, di, du, de, do. One more time. Da, di, du, de, do. Okay? Got it? Okay. Alright, so next we have the Y syllables. Now, there's technically more, but there's only really 3 that ever get used, so I'm just going to teach you the 3. So we have ya, you, and yo. So there's no yi or ye, it's just ya, you, and yo. Alright? Can you say ya, you, yo? Ya, you, yo. 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 Alright, one more time. Ya, you, yo. Alright. You're doing great so far. Thanks for going along with me. So now we just have two more letters to learn. these don't really fit into any other categories. So we have wa. Wa is the only W sound that's still in modern Japanese. There used to be others, but now there's just wa and n. So these don't really fit in any of the other categories, so that's why I'm teaching them separate. So we have wa and n. Wa, n. Wa, n. Wa, n. Wa, n. Wa, n. Can you say wa and n? Wa, n. Alright, one more time. Wa and n. So that's almost all. You're doing great. You learned the whole basic katakana alphabet. Hopefully you remember some of them. I know we've gone through this pretty fast. The best way to learn them all is to just kind of go through with flashcards and memorize them. But before we move on to the next part, because it does get a little bit more complicated, I'm going to test you a little bit. See if you remember any of the letters. So here we have the names of 3 U.S. states written in Japanese. So they are written usually in katakana. So the first one here is just 3 letters. Can you tell me what this one is? Do you remember? It's okay if you don't. I'll sound it out with you. So we have ha, wa, I. Ha, wa, I. Can you say Hawaii, Hawaii, Hawaii? It's Hawaii. Great. So let's do the next one. We have, first I'm going to see if you can get it yourself. It's 4 letters. Alright, so we have O, Ha again, I, and O again. So we have O-ha-i-o, Ohio, Ohio. Can you say Ohio? Great, it's Ohio. Okay, so the last one's a little bit harder because it's 5 letters. But we have wa again, shi, n, to, n. Great, can you say that? It's wa, shi, n, to, n. Washington, Washington, Washington. Great, it's Washington. But in Japanese you say Washington, Washington, Washington. Great? Perfect. Okay, let's move on. So, you've learned the basic Japanese katakana alphabet, syllabary, same thing. But it does get a little bit more complicated. So, now we are going to learn what are called diacritics. So these are little symbols that you put next to each letter to change the sound. And only some letters take these. So, when you take ta, right, and you put these 2 little lines next to it, you get da. So ta, you take it, you put 2 lines next to it, you get da. So ta becomes da. And it's the same thing with te and de, to and do. I've just taken the ta to simplify it here. Likewise, we take ka, we put the 2 lines next to it, like so, and we get ga. So ka becomes ga. Ka becomes ga. And it's the same with ki becoming gi, ko becoming go, ke becoming ge. But again, I've just put the sound here for simplification. And lastly, we have sa, right? We have sa. You put the two lines next to it, it becomes sa. So sa becomes sa. Sa becomes sa. Sa becomes sa. Okay? Same with so becoming so. Se becoming se. Same thing. So T, just remember T goes to D, K goes to G, S goes to Z. Okay? Again, it's a lot of information to throw at you, but we're just beginning here, so it's okay if you forget a lot of it. Alright? Then next, same thing, diacritics. Ha, you put the two lines next to it, it becomes ba. So H goes to B. Same thing with ho becoming bo, he becoming bi, he becoming be, hu, fu becoming bu. Same thing. Now the next one's a little different. Ha is the only one that takes this little circle guy, okay? And when you put the little circle guy next to ha, it becomes pa. Same thing with he becoming he becoming pe, ho becoming po, he becoming pi. We have ha becomes pa. Ha becomes pa. Okay? And I've included this last one down here because it's a little bit different. She becomes chi. Okay? She takes these little two lines, becomes chi. She becomes chi. She becomes chi. And there are technically diacritic letters for tsu and chi, but those don't get used very often at all. They're hardly ever used, so you don't really need to learn them. But she becomes chi, so that's the only kind of special one that you need to remember. Okay? Okay, ready to move on? Alright, so now I'm going to test you a little bit again. Now that you've learned the diacritic letters, you'll be able to tell me what these three states are, okay? They are American states again. This first one. Can you tell me what this first one is? Alright, if you can't get it, because I know I threw a lot of information at you, we can sound it out together. Okay? We have ka, n, and then remember, we just learned sa. Ka, n, sa, su. Kansasu. 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 It's Kansas. Great. Now this next one, can you tell me what this next one is? Can you tell me what this next one is? Alright, let's sound it out together. We have fu, do, ri, da. Fu, do, ri, da. Fu, do, ri, da. Fu, do, ri, da. We have Florida, Florida, Florida. Perfect. Alright, now let's do the last one. This one's a little bit harder because it's so many letters, but I think you can do it. Alright, can you tell me what this last one is? So let's sound it out together. Pe, n, she, Pennsylvania, 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 Pennsylvania. Perfect. All right, let's move on. All right, so we have a few more rules to learn. All right, so first we have this long, just line boy, okay? And when you use him, it elongates a vowel sound. So I'll show you an example of this in a little bit. So the long line elongates a vowel sound. That's pretty easy to remember. Next we have this tsu. When you make it smaller and you put it next to a sound, it elongates the consonant sound. So actually you put it before the consonant that you want to elongate, okay? So an example of this is we have Kentucky, Kentucky, right? So the consonant sound is a little bit elongated. We have Kentucky, 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 Kentucky. Okay? So the K of the key is elongated, as well as the E in key. So we have Kentucky. I hope that makes sense. Alright? Okay. You see the tsu is a little bit smaller than the ta and the ki. Okay? Alright, let's move on. So now we have a few more new sounds that we're going to learn. Okay? These are actually just examples. There's actually a few more sounds than this, but so to make these sounds that end in ya, you, or yo, you take a letter that ends in e. So we have ki, ni, he, she, and chi here, right? You can take any letter, right? You can also take d, or any letter that ends in e, and you add smaller, a ya, you, or a yo next to it. See how it's a little bit smaller? The ya is a little bit smaller than the ki. So you take ki and a small ya, and you make kya. You take ni and a small yu, and you make nyu. You take hi and a small yo, and you make hyo. You take shi and a small yo, and you make sho. There's also sha and shu. Then you take chi and a small ya to make cha. Okay, there's also chu and cho too as well. And any other combination you can think of exists. But I just put these here for examples. Okay, so you get ki, ya, kya. Ni, yu, nyu. Hi, yo, hyo. Shi, yo, sho. Shi, ya, cha. Okay? Kya, ni, hyo, sho, cha. Kya, ni, hyo, sho, cha. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Alright, I'm gonna quiz you again using the new rules we learned, okay? So can you say this first one? These again are all three are American states. Can you say this one for me? So this one, let's sound it out together. We have no, and then the elongating sound. So we have no, su, da, ko, ta. No, no, su, da, ko, ta. 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 So, North Dakota. Great. Okay, let's do this next one. Can you tell me what this next one is? Alright, let's sound it out together. We have New York, New York, New York, Now this last one. Can you tell me what this last one is? Alright, let's sound it out together. So we have jo, 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 ji, ah. Jo, ji, ah. Georgia, Georgia. Great, it's Georgia. Perfect. Alright, now we just have one more set of rules to learn, and then we'll be done. Okay? Okay, great. So, sometimes when you're writing words in katakana, you want to make sounds that don't really exist in native Japanese. So, luckily, there's a way to do that. So, if you want to make sounds, so fu is the only sound that has an F sound in Japanese, right? So sometimes we want to make a sound like fo or fa, right? So we can do that if we take fu and a small o, right? The o is smaller than the fu to make fo. Likewise, we can take fu and a small a and make fa. Now likewise, we can take, since there's no T sound, right? Since we said it was chi, we can make T by taking te and a small e to make T. And likewise, we take the diacritic form of te, which is de, and a small e to make D. So an example of this is the word party. Party, right? That's party in Japanese. Party. Party, right? Okay, so we have fo, fa, ti, and di. And there are a few more things to do. You can also get fe, tu, but, and fi, but I've just included these as examples. So we have fo, fa, ti, and di. Fo, fa, ti, and di. Fo, fa, ti, and di. Alright? Okay. Now I'm going to quiz you one last time. Okay? Just two this time. Again, these are US states. So, with the new rules you just learned, can you tell me what this state is? Can you tell me what this state is? Alright, let's sound it out. We have ka, li, fo, du, ni, a. Ka, li, fo, du, ni, a. So we have ka, li, fo, du, ni, a. California. California. It's even hard for me to say. But this is California, okay? Now the next one. Can you tell me what this is? Okay, let's sound it out. In, di, ana. In, di, ana. Indiana. Indiana. Okay, that's Indiana. You did great. Okay? Alright. So that's actually all I have for you today. Hopefully you learned something. If you want to learn and continue to learn Japanese, definitely make some flashcards or something and keep going. It definitely takes a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it in the end. So this last card I have for you, can you tell me what they say? I can sound them out with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, so thank you, and bye, bye, thank you, bye, bye, thank you, goodbye. So thank you so much for joining me today. Again, I hope you learned something. I hope this was relaxing for you, and I'll see you next time. Bye, bye.